I read over 35 books this year. So I wanted to share all the books I read and kind of give a rough summary or rough ranking because I have an opinion. So I put up everything in order right here, and I'm going to just go through quickly and tell you about the books I read. First one, Stephen King on writing. This book was really good. It's kind of a memoir, but also kind of tips and tricks on how he does his writing, and it was really good. So if you want to be a writer and you want some insight of Stephen King's work, I love it, because he was talking about Carrie and how his wife pushed him to finish writing Carrie because he was actually going to throw it away, and that was like his big breakthrough, and oh, so good. Then this is actually a book that Brayden got me for Christmas last year. It's called Dumplin', and there's a Netflix movie made based off this book, and this was a page turner. I think I finished this in 2 days, so really, really good. And I did watch the Netflix movie afterwards, and it did not even compare, but definitely recommend. I guess I'm not summarizing these very well. Today, tonight, tomorrow. This is really good for like my high school self. My inner high schooler was like, yes. It's about these two enemies to lover. They compete with each other. They have like a student rivalry, and then they end up, being in love. Really good. This is the book everybody needs to read. It's a self-help book called Boundaries, and that was one of my New Year's resolutions, is to set better boundaries. And it's something I'm still working on because I'm a people pleaser and I need to learn how to quit. I actually found this book at the thrift store. Funny you should ask. Oh my gosh, girl, who is the main character in this? Chani. Girl, get it together. There were some parts of this book where I was like, because in the end, this dude is in love with her. In the end, she's running away and hiding. How many times you gotta run away for this man to chase you, for you to finally be like, I love you? Girls of a certain age. I seen this book all over Pinterest. I bought it and I hated it. Loathed entirely. I did not like this book. It's so depressing. If you feel like reading about depressing stories, this is your jam. It's a bunch of short stories. Oh my gosh! I even wrote a little review in this. If you're looking for depressing short stories, this book is for you. I was hoping this book would be, I don't know, more empowering for young women, but I didn't really like it. There was one short story called Middle Men that reminded me of Summer Sisters. I do wish the story would have continued to see if/how the main character confronts Grace. I'm gonna have to reread that short story, but if you've never read Summer Sisters, that's a 10 out of 10 book. This book, however, is a 1 out of 10. It's a no for me. Here's another Pinterest book that I read, Winter in Soko. Very bizarre. I cannot believe I wrote reviews. I wish I would have done this in every single book. This book wasn't terrible, although it wasn't very descriptive. I didn't know the main character was a girl until like a 3rd chapter. And about halfway through, the author mentioned that she had glasses. I guess I could have read the description of the book where it clearly states that the main character is a woman, but it was a fast read and it felt really personal, like I was reading a diary. Okay, this was also a really, really quick read. Not my jam. But what was my jam, my favorite book, I think, out of the entire year, Before We Were Strangers. Oh! This was my first Renee Carlino book. Oh, so good. I cannot explain it. I made Brayden read this book. That's how good it was. I loved it. And this is definitely going to be a reread. So after I read this book, I bought a bunch of Renee Carlino books. Acts of Service. bizarre. It reminded me of my sister. I explained this to my sister after I read this. It's about this couple who introduces a third party and how she doesn't even really like the dude and she just wants to pleasure the woman, but the woman doesn't like her, and it's so weird. And that's why it reminds me of my sister, because my sister is involved in a lot of weird things like that. Love you, Erica. Once More with Feeling. This is the same author as Funny You Should Ask, which aren't these covers so cute? Part of the appeal, I know. But this one, I like this book way better. This dips into the musical theater industry. The things the characters do are questionable, which I just don't understand these characters. So many things could be prevented if they just communicated with each other. Get it together. This book was one of the hardest books that I read this year, which is Stephen King's It. It's the biggest book I've ever read in my life, and it took me forever. If I had never seen the miniseries on TV or the movie, I think I would have completely ditched this book. I would not have any idea what Stephen King was trying to tell me. But I'm glad I read through it, and I can say that I read it, and I will proudly never read it again. Thank you. Better than the movies. This one also was like a tribute to my high school self. It was sweet, cute, but you know, yeah. And this is my second Renee Carlino book, Wish You Were Here. This book was really, really good, and quite frankly, it's a concept that I would not have ever thought of. Oh my gosh. Oh, no review. No review. I wonder if this one has a... I probably stopped leaving the reviews after it. Yeah, no review. Emily Henry, my girl. I love Emily Henry. This book was so good. Not my favorite Emily Henry book, but you know, it's healing to read an Emily Henry book, even though you kind of know what to expect. We love it. The Idea of You, spicy. Okay, a little bit of spice. I loved this book. I didn't care for the movie as much. I like the ending in the movie better than in the book, though. The China Study. This book explains why eating meat and dairy is bad for you and why you need to switch to a plant-based diet. And I'll definitely be rereading 13 Reasons Why. I watched the Netflix series and like when it first came out, and then I saw the book at the thrift store, so I wanted to buy the book. And I like reading books that have movies or shows because then I can compare them. The Summer of Broken Rules. This one was really, 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 really cute. I liked this book a lot. It's about a girl and her boyfriend breaks up with her, which is kind of irrelevant really, but she meets somebody at her family's camp. Her family farm or whatever. Really cute. Brag Healthy Lifestyle. This book is another self-help book or health book. This book was good, except it just kept repeating the same things. Like, yeah, I highlighted a few things, but it was kind of just like, it was like they were advertising their own things. Like, look how many freaking books they have. All the same crap. I'm glad I read it, and I will probably skim through it again, but I don't plan on buying any of their crap that they're trying to pull off here. Swear on This Life. Ooh, this one was really good. This is another Renee Carlino, of course. It's about, it's kind of like Forrest Gump, Ginny and Forrest when they were kids, and then they like part ways because like Ginny gets adopted, and then Forrest writes a book about her, and then that's how they re-meet, is when she meets him as an author, and she's like, I can't believe you wrote my story. This isn't even how it happened. And then they like fall in love because you only have one life. Anyway, it was really cute. The characters were not really named Forrest and Ginny. That's just my best way of describing it to you. Love and Other Words. Really, it's really sad, actually. The ending was really sad. It got me. But also cute, but also sad. Love of my life. This book had so many twists and turns. It was actually kind of annoying because the twists and turns were in never ending. Like, can we get to the point, please? But also, it was really good. The Unhoneymooners is about a twin sister and her brother-in-law end up going on this honeymoon that was set for their sister's and brother's marriage, but they ended up having to cancel because they all got sick, and so she didn't want to waste their honeymoon, so the sister sent them to go on their honeymoon together, and then they fall in love. It's another hater to lover trope. I'm actually terrible at describing books. Maybe in another life. I'm gonna have to read the back of this one. Oh, this is like, you guys seen that movie with Lily Reinhart, I think her name is, from Riverdale, where it like shows her life if she got pregnant and if she didn't get pregnant? That is what this book is. I wonder, no, that is what this book is. She gets pregnant in one, she gets pregnant in both of them, and then she gets in a car accident in one where it kills the baby, and then the other book, the baby lives. In the other story, subplot. Depressing. Nora goes off script, really cute. I loved this book. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This has been like a really popular book for a few years now, and I bought it used and I really loved it. I could see the hype. I was totally transported into the 1920s vibes, Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland type vibe, and I loved this book. It's about Evelyn, and she marries all these guys, but her true love is actually her best friend. And at the time, it wasn't acceptable to love the same sex. So, yeah. See, that was such a good description of the book. After I do. Look, I had to read the back because aren't these books, they look so similar. And it's by the same author. After I Do is actually about this couple, their marriage is failing, and this book was actually kind of sad too because it shows how they fall in love, and then it shows them falling out of love, and then what they do to try to save their marriage is also really sad. But I think books like this are good to read because not all marriages are hard, okay? And a lot of people just give up instead of try to work on them. And to see couples work on their marriages, it's really good to read. I also read, I don't have the copy because I borrowed it from a friend. I read the Britney Spears memoir, which I really like that book as well. The X Talk, another cheesy romance. It's about this girl and they're on the radio and she's kind of having a rivalry with this dude, and then their boss creates like this fake relationship to where they can have their own show called the X Talk, and then all their fans find out that they are not really in a relationship, that they were never in a relationship, and then it all kind of like blows up in their face. And when it blows up in their face, they are revealed that they actually do like each other and they actually do want to start a relationship. Another Renee Carlino book. This book was also about a failing marriage. Like they actually got a divorce, and this is another sad one because it pans back and forth where their crappy marriage, and then it flashes back 10 years to where they were happily in love, and it flashes back in time where their marriage sucks and they hate each other and they totally resent each other, and then they get a divorce and it's really sad, and then they get an apartment, so they have their home with their children, and then they switch off and on. One goes to the apartment, one goes to the home, and then they have rules, obviously no other women or men in the apartment. It's just for them. If they want to go out, they have to do it somewhere else. And then they switch, and then finally, in the end, they start dating each other again, and that makes it more exciting. And, of course, Renee Carlino has to throw in a twist where the wife is actually dying, and so she dies in like a year after they get back together. I got engaged this year, so I bought a bunch of wedding books because I've never been to a wedding, so I thought maybe I can get some insight on cheesy romance wedding books. And this is Bridesmaid for Hire, and this book was really spicy, and I want to say it was a little too spicy for me. I don't care for over-dominant men, and that was like a kink in this. And I have another book by Megan Quinn that is also, it's like, I think it's called Bridesmaid Undercover. That one might be pushed to the back burner just because how spicy that book was. The 7-Year Slip. Oh, this one was so good. This is not your average romance book. It's about Clementine and her relationship with her aunt. And her aunt owns this magical apartment in Manhattan, and when her aunt passed away, she inherited this magical apartment, which she always heard stories from her aunt, but it was never appeared magic to her until one year she is slipped back into the past 7 years prior, and she meets, what's this guy's name? I know, right? Totally forgettable. Well, she meets this guy and she falls in love with this guy 7 years from the past, and then she meets him again 7 years in the future, and it's really good. And I hope my nieces read this book one day because the relationship with the aunt is so iconic, and I hope to be that aunt. Then, because it is the holiday season, I read this In a Holidays, which is a romance book, but it's also got that like Groundhog Day thing going, and it's holiday-y, and then there's like a romance subplot, and it's cute, and I like that there's not too much spice, and there's a cabin in the snowy mountains. It's really fun. Another self-help book. This one was a really quick read. It's called The Game of Life. It's super religious, which I was not anticipating, because if you read the back, it doesn't even go there, but it's very religious. And so I kind of skimmed through it a little bit, and I skimmed past all the Our Lord and Savior crap, which, if you believe in it, that's your thing. And then I just finished my favorite Half Night Stand, which it's about a girl with a group of guy friends, and she falls in love. What's his name? I literally just read this book. Millie and Reed. She falls in love with Reed, but she's also catfishing him on this dating site. And yeah. And now currently I'm reading We Were the Lucky Ones. And actually, I did not read the back of this book. I picked it up and I was like, okay, this is going to be another romance book. And it's actually a really sad story based on true events of a Jewish family during the World War II. And oh, so sad. Oh my gosh. And then one of the other books that I just read in November is called A Little Life. Girl, the most sad, depressing book I've ever read in my entire life. If you want to read a traumatic book, A Little Life is for you. I'm actually letting a friend of mine borrow it just so I can have someone to talk to about it, because I need someone to experience it, so that way I can have someone to talk to about it. But yeah, those are all the books that I read this year. And next year, my goal is to read a little bit more challenging books, a little more memorable books, because even though I read all these books, which is the most books I've ever read in a year, like I said, a lot of them were really forgettable, and a lot of them were really easy. I just flew right through them, versus A Little Life. That took me literally an entire month to finish it, or it took me a month to finish it. And I think reading in third person is also more challenging for me. I like reading in first person because then I feel like I'm like reading someone's diary, versus third person is just way more challenging for me. But the book I'm reading right now, We Were the Lucky Ones, is also third person. So I'm starting my New Year's goal right now, starting to read challenging books even if I don't reach 35 books next year, I will read more memorable, more challenging books. So that is my New Year's resolution. Thanks for tuning in. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and what you rate them, and if you haven't. I'm late to the game with all these books. All these books have been out, except for Funny Story, which came out this year. But other than that, all these books have kind of been on the market for a while. So if you read them, let me know what you thought of them and if my opinion sucks.